So inductive reasoning, the means by which we go from studying a case to generating a hypothesis. So we look at a set of facts and then we come up with a theory. So it's a foundation on which we build greater theories in comparative politics. Deductive reasoning, we start with a puzzle, and from there we generate some hypothesis about cause and effect to test against a number of cases. So it's inverse here. Inductive reasoning, we start with the evidence as a way to uncover a hypothesis. Deductive reasoning starts with the hypothesis and then seeks out evidence. All right, inductive, we're looking at the evidence for a reason. Deductive, we start out with a reason and we look for evidence to support it. So I promised this. There have been different periods of study in the political science discipline. The first being the traditional period from about 1850 to 1930. And there were three big characteristics in the field of comparative politics made during this time. We have people studying legalism, which is the study of laws. We're looking literally at constitutions and seeing how countries are set up, how they operate. The focus was not on finding any sort of real behavior or behavioral trends. Constitutions, I mean, when you get down to brass tacks, constitutions are really brochures on how a government is supposed to work. So legalism, we're studying the brochures, really. Parochialism, we're looking at the big three here in political science: France, Great Britain, and Germany. Sometimes they would look at political trends in Russia, too. Variety of reasons for it. These were considered the 3 or 4, if you throw in Russia, most important states. There were ethnocentric sort of reasons. They were more advanced technologically, too, than the rest of the world. Methodological insensitivity. Really self-explanatory. There really wasn't a method here to studying any of these countries. These were just the countries to study because they were big and important and influential in their time. So there wasn't really any social science involved here. There's no hypothesis formed as to why something is happening. No, nothing. We just look at, okay, here's the Parliament of Great Britain. Great Britain operates as a parliamentary democracy under a constitutional monarchy. Charles III is the head, right? The second, et cetera, et cetera. So the behavioral period started in about 1950, but it's probably still going on today. And there are two general trends in the behavioral period. Early on, there's an attempt to gain more policy relevance through the study of political science. World War II greatly increases the importance of political science. We fought 2 world wars. We need to now understand why we are behaving in the way that we are, that we've now killed millions of people world over. At the same time, political science research focused on the use of quantitative and statistical methods. Quantitative is numbers. Qualitative research, which is what I do, descriptive, right? I have no head for numbers. I couldn't do quantitative, or still I could, but it is just not something I enjoy doing. So quantitative and statistical methods in political science are reinforced by the use of survey methods and statistics. 2 trends common during the behavioral period that shape comparative politics. By the mid-1950s and during the Cold War, other countries began to take on a greater importance in international politics and comparative politics, other than France, Great Britain, Germany, sometimes Russia. Right? This period marks the decolonization of Africa and Asia. It becomes too expensive for Britain to maintain her empire, for France to maintain her empire, although France has done a better job at keeping hold of some of her overseas territories from the empire days than Britain has. So we needed to find a political analysis to understand what the new countries were all about that were springing up. Then the post-behavioral period from 1970 roundabout to today. Post-behavioralism is noted by a concern for policy relevance in political science. So what's the reason? Why is this happening? How can we fix issue X through the study of behavior Y in political science? So today there's not the overarching organization of the discipline that behavioralism provided, but it's still there. The basic vocabulary and structures of political science and comparative politics. So there are three basic categories here: analytical concepts and concepts, which are assumptions and theories that guide our research; methods, ways to study and test those theories; ideals, beliefs and values about preferred outcomes. Analytical concepts help us ask questions about cause and effect. Methods provide tools to seek out explanations, and ideals help us compare existing politics with what we might prefer. Institutions in political science, we define them organizations or activities that are self-perpetuating and valued for their own sake. A political institution, think of the United Nations, think of NATO. Institutions in our discipline play an important role in defining and shaping what is possible and probable in political life by laying out the rules, norms, and structures in which we live. All right. Correlation. We're getting into kind of the scientific method here. So correlation in political science, we're looking at an association between certain factors or variables. Very easy. All right, I take the chapter test for chapter 1 in People and Politics. I have a greater chance at passing the class because I've done the work and gained some points. All right, take the test, greater chance of passing the class. There's a correlation there. That's also a causal relationship. Taking the tests in the class lead to a good or passing grade. Then there's multi-causality. Right? Many variables interact to produce particular outcomes. So did your internet go out when the test was open? Did you study for the test? Did you get enough sleep the night before? Did you read the textbook? I mean, there's a lot that goes into, okay, you took the test. Now what needs to go into getting you a good grade on the test to get that passing grade in the class? So there are area studies in comparative politics, regional focuses. For example, one might study, like I do, Britain and the Empire. Others might study China. We deal with selection bias, which is a focus on effects rather than causes, which can lead to inaccurate conclusions about correlation or causation. Endogeneity, the issue that cause and effect are not often clear, and that variables may both cause and effect in relationship to one another. So they can be both. They can be the cause and the effect. All right. Normative statements. Those are value judgments. Those are not facts necessarily. They're what we'd like to be true. Concern value judgments in which the researcher is describing the way she believes that a thing ought to be. So Mr. Parker should give me an A on my first exam. That's not a dictate to me. That's not how it's going to play if you don't study or you don't get enough sleep or whatever. That's something you think ought to happen. Empirical statements describe the actual world of experience based on evidence. An empirical statement. My instructor for people in politics is Jonathan Parker. That would be a statement of fact. These types of statements have two advantages over normative statements. One, it's objectively true or objectively false. If you said, my instructor for people in politics is Jessica Jones, no. Look at your schedule, right? It is the ability to verify these statements that make them scientific. You can look, you can see that it's true. It describes the actual world. I am teaching this class. They can be less subjective. All right, another one. Mark Carney is the Prime Minister of Canada. This is true. He replaced Justin Trudeau, who was the longtime leader of Canada. So most political science research involves concepts that can be abstract. And boy, can they be abstract. When we take concepts and turn them into variables, this is known as operationalization. Remember that one. Operationalization. So a variable is a phenomenon thought to influence or be influenced by something else. Let's go back to the beginning. You study, you take the test, you get an A, you pass. Straight line, cause and effect. What's a variable? Okay, you studied. What's another variable? The test. Well, you wouldn't have gotten an A if there wasn't a test to take, right? And so on and so forth. So the dependent variable is the phenomena that we want to explain. So in our situation, what gets you a good grade on the test? The independent variable is thought to have an effect or influence on the dependent variable. So the studying, in this case, is the independent variable. The studying is thought to have the effect of helping you get a better grade on the test. Examples. All right, President Biden was elected because of disenfranchised white men in Pennsylvania, Illinois, and Michigan. Let's take a step back from whether or not this is a true statement and just pick out the dependent and independent variable. So what we're trying to find out, the dependent variable is the phenomena that we want to explain. So President Biden was elected because of disenfranchised white men in Pennsylvania, Illinois, and Michigan. All right, why was he elected? So then we need the independent variable, which is thought to have an effect or influence on the dependent variable. What got him elected? The disenfranchised white men. Money in political campaigns is why Congress is dysfunctional. So we're seeking to explain, again, the dependent variable is the phenomena that we want to explain why Congress is dysfunctional. That's what we're wanting to explain. The independent variable is thought to have an effect or influence on the dependent variable. Money. Independent variable. Congress being dysfunctional. Money in politics. A degree in political science will lead to untold riches for those that earn one. I'll leave that for you. I can tell you it's not true, but I'll leave that one for you to practice on. So what is a hypothesis? An explicit statement that indicates how a researcher thinks the phenomena of interest are related. Hypotheses are educated guesses or propositions about the relationship between two or more variables, the dependent variable and the independent variable. Degree in political science will lead to untold riches for those that earn one. All right, that can be a hypothesis or formed into a hypothesis. I think I'll make a lot of money if I get a degree in political science. So the characteristics of a good hypothesis, what I just said isn't necessarily a good hypothesis, but it's a hypothesis. Empirical statements about relationships that exist in the real world. Hypotheses should be plausible. There should be some logical reason for thinking that the hypothesis might be true. And the hypothesis should be specific. The relationship between your variables should be stated as specifically as possible, and concepts should be carefully defined. And the hypothesis should be testable. You should be able to go out into the field, and when I say the field, I just mean when you leave the classroom, when you walk out your front door, wherever you go that isn't where you've developed this hypothesis. All right, the quantitative research design. Much of the research in comparative politics today uses quantitative methods because of the large number of units under investigation. Sometimes, we're looking at the Constitution or the laws on the books in 50 different countries. The most common statistical technique used in political science is regression, and that establishes the association or correlation among the variables. So, we'll get real mathy about it in political science. You'll have your two axes, whatever you're defining, and you'll plot points, and that'll be what a regression chart looks like. Better drawn than what you see right there, but you get the idea. The rational choice formal theory, so this method models the preferences of individuals in various political settings and the choice of individuals in those settings. Qualitative research design we'll pick up in part 3.